What's up, guys? Adam back again with RV Returners. Again, Chris is here with me. We're going to go through the rest of Opus 8. So this time it's wind. It's an element that I know I've talked about a lot. That my disdain for it, I guess, but I still will play it. I don't think it really needs anything else, but I think it got some things.
Man, they got a lot of things.
Yes.
A lot of things.
So I guess let's just get into it really quick. Go card by card.
Dive in. I got my swim trunks on and my swimming cap. Let's go.
Yeah. So first up is Archangel MR. It's a 2 CP, 3K, category 11. Can't be blocked by forwards of 7,000 or more, and then for 2 wind, it can't be chosen by summons or abilities this turn.
I don't know. I don't know where this card's going to see play. I think it's one of those cards that reads very well. 7K is kind of a sweet spot. Being able to protect it is really good, but what's unfortunate is it's at that sweet spot where it doesn't even need to be targeted. They're just like Valifor.
Yep.
That's a wrap. So I think I can only give it a 1, honestly, just because cards like Valifor are just floating around out there, and I'll handle them if you've got Yuri and Shalinka out. Don't even care if you can target this thing or not.
What do you think about title?
In title, it's an 11 card. It depends on if they have enough green to make it so this thing can't be chosen. I think it's fine. And also, typically in title, forwards are big. So this thing might be able to slide under the radar. So I think in title, I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually going to give it a 3 in standard just because... Well, okay, actually, no, I'm going to go a 2. You said a 1, right?
Yeah, I said a 1.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2. I don't think it's quite a 3. I think basically for the things you said, it's just too easy to like just accidentally kill this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So... But, like, yeah, I guess if it, like, does get in for a few points of damage, it doesn't feel bad. It's pretty good for, like, a 2 CP, I think. It's okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not sure where it's going to go, really, either. Like, it's not going to really go in mono wind. And the double wind might hurt it in other places. I mean, it's still, at least you could discard a wind card to it, but yeah, I'm going to give it a 2 there. And then in title, I'm going to say it's a 3, just because there's, yeah, like you said, things are usually bigger there, for the most part, and... So it might be able to get under, and there's a lot of categories don't really have access to like that, just like at AOE damage really. So some titles can't deal with it as well. Others will have an easier time. So
yeah, 10 still slams it because I believe isn't Valifor FF10 as well.
It is, yeah. If they play Valifor, it'll slam it. Yep.
Yep.
Next is Alexander. It's a 4 CP summon category 7. Choose one character, cost 4 or more, and break it.
I'll let you lead off on this one, man. I know I like the card. I'll let you start on this one because I know you've been playing with it a little bit more.
So I think it's a tad bit overrated. I'm probably somewhere between a 2 and a 3. I'm gonna give it a 2 just because I'm gonna assume that you might rate it a little higher. I just sometimes it just sits in your hand and you can't use it. And I think that's like the big problem. Like. It does break some nice stuff. Like, it hits, like, Yuri, it hits Dodaluma, it hits Alice. Really no monsters that see play that it's going to hit unless you're running up against, like, Ozma or something.
Big dumpy.
It does hit Gigas, yeah. But in title, I'll say in title it's a solid 3, because a lot of stuff in title is gonna hit. There's a lot more 4 CP and up forwards in title. Whereas in standard, I feel like most people are already afraid to play 5 CP, so really all this is hitting is 4 CP forwards. So at that point, it just seems like a worse Odin to me. But it can hit backups, which I think is what kind of might save it. So.
Yeah, I'm actually right on the same page as you, man. I think it's a 2. I think it's a good card. I think it is a little overhyped. Because what I'm noticing, too, I feel like you're seeing a lot more 2 and 3 cost backups with like the occasional 4+. And that's not the case with every deck, because I think you're going to have a lot of decks that are still going to be running like Dominion Legionnaire. I think you're going to see a lot of Zangin, in this meta. I don't think it's going to be like a top tier deck, but people love 7 and people are going to try a 7 standard deck, and I think Zangin's a real big part of that. So it hits that. It hits Alize. It hits a lot of these thematic deck backups, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Minor's a big one too, I guess, like as far as like a general one that it hits. But yeah.
Yeah, Minor, Minfilia are kind of the two big ones for Earth. But I think the card is good. I give it a 2 as well. I do think it will see play in Standard. I think it's in Mono Wind. I think it's worth like a 1 or a 2 of,
Hmm.
because it gives them answers to things like Alize, stuff they didn't have answers to before.
Yep.
And now, but I don't think it's going to like replace anything. It's not going to replace like Chaos Walker or anything like that anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
in title, I agree with you. Once again, I think it's a 3. I think it misses a lot of really good cards, but I think it still hits a lot of really powerful cards and a lot against a lot of the a lot of the powerful archetypes. Like this obviously gets Kamari off the board. It's a good way for 7 to deal with like Sin or something like that. I think it's good in the mirror match to get like some of the like bigger size for like Genesis, Sephiroth, stuff like that.
Yep.
So I think it's a good card in title. I give it a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next up is Waltril. He's a 2 CP wind backup FFCC. When he enters the field, put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw that many cards that you returned. And then for a dull and break, draw a card, place 1 card on the bottom of your deck. You can only use this ability if you control a card name Norstalen.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I think this is one of the best win cards in the set.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's another powerful part of Crystal Chronicles, and the fact that it's almost like an Artemisian. It's like a green Artemisian kind of, but a little bit limited. But this is great against like when you're playing mono wind or 4 mono wind. If you're playing wind water, look, I don't care who you are. Sometimes it happens where you have that opener where you've got this and you've got like 2 Yuris in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a great turn 1 play. Now, I think mono wind more so than wind water. Being able to drop this thing on turn 1 and really just clean up your hand a little bit is just absolutely huge. And the second ability, we'll talk more about how great that is when we talk about the other card. But I think this card is great from top to bottom. I almost want to give it a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't feel bad if I did.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna give this card a 5.
Okay, and then what about in title? I assume it's 5 in both.
I think it's gonna be a 5 in title as well. Yeah, so I think in title, I think one of the big things, I think Crystal Chronicles is very under researched, I guess, because they've got cards like this, they've got searchers, and they've also got one of the tap and increased by 1,000 backups as well. So I think it's I told you all that to tell you this card's a 5 in title.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 in standard.
Mm-hmm.
Only because it does rely on another card, but I think it is a great card. And the
Yeah.
fact that the other card exists, I think makes it even better.
Mhm.
It's a great early game backup. It's even a fine mid game backup, and then later it allows you to break it as long as you have the other card.
Mm-hmm.
And then in title, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer 5 because you're going to be running all that stuff anyways. So you're definitely going to be running this, and there's like no element restriction on it or anything. Like, so it's just great. Yeah, I think it's a really good card that people should be looking at, and I think Mono One got an upgrade, and I don't know why, but I think it did.
Yeah, big time.
Next up, we got Warrior of Light. So it's a 4 CP AK category 1 job Warrior of Light. When a job standard unit forward enters the field, choose up to 2 backups, activate them. When Warrior of Light attacks all job standard unit forward you control, gain plus 2,000 power until end of turn.
Mhm.
I'll go first on this one. I think I think this card's busted, actually.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm gonna give this card a 5. I think it's gonna take some time though. I think people are gonna have to figure out the right build.
Mm-hmm.
But just like this is basically a discount on any standard unit forward in your deck. The turn that you play them. So you could get in a situation where you're playing Knights for free, you're playing Rangers for 1. There's just so many things you can do with this. Chocobos, right? They're all standard units, so now you're playing Chocobos for 1. That seems really nuts to me. And then on top of that, like I think if you run this with a card like Sid 2 or something, you can potentially be netting CP when you play standard units, which seems even more nuts to me. I just think people are going to have to experiment with it and think a little bit outside the box. I don't think you can kind of just slam it in any deck and it just does stuff, but I think once people figure it out, I think this card's going to be nuts.
Yeah, I agree with all. What about in title? Go ahead and give this thing the obligatory
well,
zero.
It's a zero.
Title.
It's a zero because you can't play standard units in a one title deck right now, so it's a zero.
Yep. So I agree with you. I think this card, if I could give this card like a JFB style rating, I would put this thing through the roof. I think this would be the best wind card in the set because, like, for all the points you just said, your wind water standard units is already a really solid archetype, and obviously that was shown at the German Crystal Cup for Opus VII. And the fact that he's in a color where you can play this guy, yeah, he's a 4 CP8K, which makes him pretty average and susceptible to a lot of removal, but you can play Y'shtola to protect him. And then you're just massing all of this value from just playing stuff at discounted for free for positive CP. Oh, and by the way, when he attacks, he makes all of those big ass standard units. He makes them even bigger for the turn.
Yep.
So this guy's nuts. This guy is absolutely nuts. I give him like a 40 out of 5.
Okay, so I can only put 5 stars on the screen. So.
Just plaster my whole side with stars. No, it's 5 out of 5 clean. And same thing with your title. It's a 0 because he's not really doing anything.
Right. Yep. Next up is Aerith. It's a 3 CP, 7K, Cat 7. Forwards you control don't receive damage that is less than their power. If Aerith is dealt damage by a summoner ability, reduce the damage by 2,000. And when Aerith is put from the field to the Brave Zone, activate all backups you control.
I like this card too. I don't know where. I think she's good. She reads very well. She's got the biggest boots in the game. I think like a drop kick straight to the Shadow Realm. That's what would happen. You're just dead. But I don't know where she belongs. I definitely think she's worth experimenting with. But I think the real question you have to ask with her is she better than Planet Protector? And I think that's going to be the hard part. I think she's a really, really good card. I'm going to give her a 3 with an asterisk because I think she could easily be a 4. But I'd have to see more stuff and try more stuff. Right now, Planet Protector can just be such a blowout, and I don't think this card can be a blowout yet.
Sure, yeah. If you get off that S, it definitely is a blowout for sure. I'm going to give this card a 4 in Standard. I think that it just all the text on it is so good.
Yeah.
I think the only thing is when you're running into Wind X decks, it ends up like kind of trying to jockey for a spot with like Y'shtola and Zidane, and I feel like that's a hard place to be. But in mono, I think I'm playing this over the backup. I could see the reasoning for the backup though for sure. But I think with the other backups that are being printed in this set too, it just kind of I think almost pushes it out a little bit, which gives me room to just play this instead.
Sure.
And then there might be like some other 7 archetypes that play wind that would rather have the forward. But, I mean, I think the backup's still really good, but I'm going to give this a 4. And then in title, I'm going to sit at a 4 as well. I think there's just... Because, like, the other thing in 7, I think right now is, like, you're going to want different names. Like you want your Clouds, you want your Tifas, and your Vincents probably. And... but it is really nice that you can play the backup and this card in title for sure, which is going to be kind of nutty. But I think she's going to struggle to find room as more than like a 1 or 2 of in a title deck because you want to be in so many other places. But if that wasn't the case, I think she'd be a 5. But because that's the case, I'm going to keep her at a 4.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't say what I thought for title. I think she's a 3, and it's because of the reasons you said. I feel like she could only be squeezed in as like a 1 of, maybe a 2 if you really work at it. But I think because of her name, your deck is most likely looking to do other things, and I think she's just kind of like, all right, I'll play her and see what happens kind of thing. I don't think she – I think against the matchups that 7 struggled with initially, I don't think she helps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think she helps that much. Yeah.
But I give her a 3 for title.
Sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense for sure. Next up is Onion Knight. He's a 4 CP 8K EX burst. When he enters the field, choose 2 backups you control. If you receive 3 points of damage or more, activate them. If you receive 5 points of damage or more, activate all backups you control.
I like this card too. I really, really do. Now, this is one of those cards that it's also jockeying for a crowded space. I look at this guy, and I know we talked about it a little bit on our podcast. I see this guy in the same light that I look at Vada, and I think sometimes he may just be better than Vada. But I think sometimes Vada may just be the better card. It being a burst does definitely help its argument. And I think, when you're in the late game, if you're at, 5 or 6 points of damage and this thing flips on burst and You activate all your backups, and you get to do more Yuri shenanigans. I think it could be good. I'm gonna give this one a 3
Mm-hmm.
as well. But I do think it could easily be a 4. And in title, I don't really know. I think 3 title isn't there. I do think it's probably good for 3 title because you can activate your backups. So I might give it a 4 in title just because I think it'll do a lot for that deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3 in standard as well. I think Vada at earlier points of the game is just gonna do way more for you, and the
Yeah.
fact that you can still like pitch from your hand to play Vada and then like reactivate and do a lot of tricky stuff. You can kind of do that with this, but it requires you to be on 3 points of damage just to activate 2. Whereas Vada, even early game, can potentially activate 5. And then I need to be on 5 points of damage to activate all the backups. I think the big difference is that this is a burst and Vada's not. Otherwise, I think Vada would just be the clear better card.
Oh, absolutely. I think the burst gives it some legs.
Yeah, but the burst kind of makes it, if you want to like kind of up your burst count, which mono wind's not really a super high burst count anyways. So the wind water one definitely is, but when you get to the mono, it becomes less of a burstier deck.
Yeah, for sure.
In title, I'm gonna give it a 5 just because Final Fantasy 3 title is pretty bad, and this might be like one of the better forwards that they have.
That's fair.
So I'm just gonna give it a 5 just for that reason. Not that it's like gonna make 3 better or playable, but it's definitely an improvement. Next up is Garuda. It's a 4 CP summon category 11 EX burst. Choose one forward, deal it 2,000 damage and 1,000 damage for each wind character you control.
I don't think this card is terrible. I just don't know where it goes because obviously you're playing this in a mono wind deck, or you could even argue and no, you can't argue in wind water. You're playing this thing in mono wind, and I just don't know if it makes the cut.
I don't think it does. I think Diablos is a better card. The 3 CP EX burst.
Yeah. I think this card gets a 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it
a 1. It's not terrible, but it's not, and in title, it's 11 title.
Yep.
I think it's a 1 and 11 title as well because you're probably not going to have a bunch of wind characters to really take advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1 across the board too. Not enough wind characters in title, so it's not really gonna do anything there. And then in standard, I think you're better off playing the Type 0 Diablos. I think that's just a better card. It's 1 CP cheaper. It does a little bit less damage, but it counts every character. It's not just wind characters, so it's even better outside of just mono decks. So I think both aren't that great, but I think I would rather play that card, so I'm going to give this a 1. Next up is Thief. It's a 4 CP standard unit backup. When it enters the field, name an element. Your opponent randomly reveals 2 cards from his or her hand. Select 1 card of the same element among them, and your opponent discards that card.
This card's weird, right? I don't think it's great. I think if you're playing which I don't know how good it would be, but like a wind ice dedicated hand strip deck, I think it could be good there because obviously if you're playing against a monocolored deck and you're like Earth, and you're gonna get something. Obviously it would get a little tricky in multicolored decks or anything like that. Like five color jank, it could get a little out of control. But I think the card's fine. You can search it off of a Star Sybil. I'm looking for some nicer things to say. I don't think this card will see much play. I'm gonna give it a 1.
What about
in title? It's 11. I think in title it might actually be pretty okay as a win backup for 11. So I might actually give this thing a 4 for title.
Okay. And I'm gonna give it a 1 in standard. Just because I don't want to pay 4 CP for the potential to whiff. That sounds awful.
Yep.
And if I do whiff, it's gonna feel super bad. And then also because I don't get to see their whole hand, I could get 2 of their worst cards in their hand and just have to pick the better of the worst cards, and that also feels bad.
Yep.
You also have to. It's also you could whiff because light and dark cards are seen in play. So if you call wind and they're playing wind water and you hit Yuri Yuna, that feels terrible. It's just the potential to whiff, and I'm paying 4 CP just feels bad. In title, I'm gonna give it a 2, just because it's more playable there. But I think it's even more likely that you whiff because everyone's playing a 7 color deck, so it's gonna be a little bit harder and more likely that you whiff. But yeah, it is win CP, and it's a backup that they need because they don't have a lot of really good backups, really.
Exactly.
Next up is Charlotta. It's a 2 CP backup. Crystal Chronicles. You may pay if you pay CP. You may put Charlotta into the break zone to produce 1 CP of any element. You may dole Charlotta to pay CP.
If you want to go first on this one, I know this was your favorite one.
Yeah, so it's worded pretty terribly. There is an errata that's worded better than this. But essentially what it is, it's a field ability, and when you are paying for a card, you can just break her to produce an extra CP of any color that you want. I think it's pretty busted. I'm going to give her a 4 right now because I don't know exactly how busted she is yet, but I think her potential is very, very high, high enough to maybe be a 5. She's tutorable in this set also, which is kind of a big deal. I'm looking at playing her in a lot of just Windex decks, just because she can help with consistency. And then I want to try to build like some kind of combo thing where you can kind of abuse her. So that's why I'm kind of just there for at 4. And then in title, I'll probably give her a 5 because she's a 2 CP backup that just kind of, you play turn 1 and you can do whatever you want with it. So.
Yep. And I'm in agreement, but I'm actually going to give her a 5 on both because I think she is a cornerstone for some combo decks. The fact that she is Crystal Chronicles, making her searchable. She allows you to, any win deck you're playing, she does make your mana so much more consistent. I just think the card is really, really good, and it's just a 2 CP backup, which is never bad. So, yeah, just 5 across the board. And a lot of that stuff holds sway for title as well. So, yeah, 5 on both ends.
Yep. Next is Sid Highwind. He's a 5 CP 7K, Cat 7. When he enters the field, choose one backup, cost 3 or more opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand. And then he has a S Big Brawl for S tap. Choose one character opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand.
Yo, my man's ready to get into a big brawl, hands on the hips. Look, it got Bill Cowher chin going.
Yeah, that's another one with like the Kingdom Hearts like art.
Yeah.
I think people are a little hard on this card too, to be honest.
I think it's better than people think it is. I'll let you go ahead first if you want, because I know you love them 7 cards.
I'm not saying he's great. I'm gonna give him a 2, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think if you can somehow like return a backup and then maybe like blink him with say like Renault or something, return a second backup, that could set someone like pretty far back. So I think in standard he could maybe do something, and if you Diabolus this dude, like I don't care, like you got it if you really want to. And then I mean maybe his S could like move something out of the way to win you a game later down the road. I don't know if you're running 3, but like 2 of seems to be okay with me, so you're probably not going to get the S off a lot. But if you do, great. In title, I'm going to give him a 1 because there's just way better stuff to play in 7 title. I don't even think you're going to be able to find room for this guy, to be honest.
Yep, I agree with all that. I think he's a 2 in standard. And because, like you said, I think sometimes if you play this guy at the right time, returning one of their backups, like for example, in a wind deck, and maybe even like wind water, if you're looking for that Valifor turn, you slam him down, you bounce Minwoo back to your opponent's hand or something that's protecting their forwards. It allows you to he kind of opens up the board for you to get over. So I think that's good enough in some matchups, which I could easily see him as like a 1 of in some decks. But it's really going to depend. He'll be as good as like the meta shapes out, kind of like Alexander, right?
Yep.
If you're seeing a lot of 3+ stuff or 4+ stuff backup wise, I think he could be a really good card. So he's a 2 for right now. I could reevaluate that later. And same thing in title. He's a 1. He just has the wrong name and just doesn't really gel with what that deck's trying to do.
Yep, I agree. Next up is Selkie. It's a 4 CP standard unit, Crystal Chronicles. When it's put from the field into the break zone, your opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her deck into the break zone. If both cards are the same type, draw a card.
I like this card. I'm going to start with title first because I think it's 5 in title for Crystal Chronicles. You know why? Because that just feels really, really good against the Final Fantasy V matchup. Because more times than not, they're going to flip the same 2 card types over, and you're going to draw a card. So I think she's a 5 in title. In standard, maybe a 1 or a 2. I just don't really see. I mean, obviously, if you're playing like a dedicated mill deck, which we said this the first time, more power to you if that's what you want to do. I don't think she does enough for the colors that you're going to play her in. I mean, maybe you could get cute if you're playing like a wind water standard unit deck, because if you got Warrior or Light Out, she's only going to cost 2 technically. But I mean, we're stretching here. So I think in standard, what did I say? A 2, maybe I might even go as low as a 1 on this one. But I'm going to give it a 2 just because she's green in a standard unit and a card like Warrior of Light exists.
Yeah, I'm going to give her a 1. I don't think she's
Mm-hmm.
going to see much play. I just think she's going to struggle to find a room. And then,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
again, I'm paying 4 CP. She might whiff. So if she whiffs, then she's just a blank card that milled for 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in title, I'll say she's like a 3. Just because, like, there's not a lot of forwards there. And so they probably need extra help. And
Mm-hmm.
if she draws you a card there, that's pretty good. Yeah, not much more for me from
Yep.
there. Next up is Death Gaze 9. It's a category 9 monster. When it enters the field, choose a forward opponent controls. Remove from the game for as long as Death Gaze is on the field.
I actually like this card a lot. It's in a monster sweet spot, being cost 3. It's a really solid piece of removal. Granted, it's one of those cards you kind of have to like really evaluate the meta to use, because there's a lot of monster hate going around. You're just going to feel silly when you play this thing. But then there are some tricks you can do. I know we had talked about like using Mion to bounce that if they play another forward that you already took, that kind of thing. I'm going to give it a 3 because I think it's a solid piece of removal. It's another piece of removal that I think Wind didn't really need, but I think it helps them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So because it doesn't, if it's a forward that, like, for example, if you're playing against Ice and you target Setzer with this thing, they don't get the exit trigger off of Setzer. So like it's good for like same thing with Gautis. You put this thing on Gautis, they're not going to get that exit trigger, which I think is huge. And in title, I think it's a 5 out of 5 just because 9 needs more removal, and I think this is a great piece of it in title because there's not a lot of monster interaction in title.
Yep. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3 as well in standard. I think it's just it's a piece of removal Wind probably didn't need, and now they have access to. But yeah, if monster hate's a big thing, then you're probably not gonna want to play this. You want to steal stuff that doesn't have ETBs if possible, or just high threat things like Dataluma is probably good.
Yep.
The trickier stuff, I think you're gonna have to play different elements. You could play Mion just in color and probably do some cool stuff, but I don't think that's gonna come up a whole lot, and especially if like people understand the ruling that you're playing against, they're probably less likely to play into it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think he's just an interesting like 1 or 2 of at most in decks, and so I'm gonna probably stick around at 3. In title, yeah, I'm gonna probably say he's a 5 as well because it gives 9 access to hard removal, which they desperately needed. So you're probably running 2 to 3 copies in title and not feeling bad about it.
Yep.
And then next is Ninja. It's a 2 CP category 14. It's an Archer reprint. It's 2-way tap, put it in the break zone, choose a backup 3 or less, break it.
Look, Archer's a good card. This is going to be a good card. I think it depends on if you want like what kind of style of art you're looking for. That's really about it. I mean, it's going to see play. It just really depends. Like I said, if you want to play this over Archer, or I mean, it's the same damn thing. So I'll give it 1.
Yeah, you could potentially play 6, I guess, if you really wanted to. I guess that's one thing. Like you could play 3 and 3. Sure. I don't think you ever are going to, but you have that
and
option.
And category 14 could be important down the road for like searchers or things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a solid 3 or 4. I mean, it's a good card. This is a good card.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Archer's probably a 4 or 5, so I'll probably give this a 4. And then in title, I'm gonna give it a 1 right now, just because there's not a whole lot of Wind, and you don't want to discard your Gishtolas to this, but it does give you access to break backups and title.
Yep.
So
I'll give it a 1 as well because of that. I mean, we're on the same page on this one.
Next is Nordstalin. It's a 4 CP backup Crystal Chronicles. When it enters the field, you may search for 1 category FFCC backup and add it to your hand.
5 out of 5. This card is nuts, and this card makes the first one better. And you're getting so many things off of this. You're searching for what was the first one? Westall or whatever it was called.
Winder or something like that. Windtrill.
Yeah, Windtrill. You're searching for that. You can search for Alaria. You can search for Charlotta. Alhanalim. You could search for Epitaph. You can search for Kolka. There's a lot. You can search for Pavlov if you're into that kind of thing. So there's a lot this thing can get. I think it's a 5 out of 5 on both counts. It is a must play if you're playing Wind in any kind of Crystal Chronicles package.
Yeah, I think it's a 5 out of 5 as well. Just be able to have flexibility there to search multitudes of backups is gonna make it that easier to get to 5 backups and play backups that you really want to be laying down. and then the fact that one of them's breakable, and then Wind has ways to kind of get this back in your hand and replay it if you really want to go that route. So you can search out multiple backups. Yeah, I think this card's nuts. I think it's also, I think it's a 5 in both title and standard. I think a bunch of people are going to be playing this. And again, this is another mono wind buff that probably shouldn't have happened, but whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Next up is Basilisk. It's a 5 CP monster, category 9. When it enters the field, choose a forward, deal with 4,000 damage. Put it in the break zone, choose 1 damage forward, break it.
I think it's fine. I think it's a great limited card. I don't know what kind of play it'll see in standard. It is a little pricey for what it does. I feel like if you're playing like Wind Lightning, I just feel like there's a lot more efficient ways to do what this card is doing. I think so I'm going to give it a 1 for standard. For title, it's another piece of removal for 9 that can't really be interacted with. I'm going to give it a 4 just because it's expensive. If it was 4, if it cost 4 or less, I'd give it a 5 for title.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1 for standard, 4 for title.
I'm going to give it a 2 across the board. I think it's one of the more playable high-end monsters in standard, but I still don't think it's going to make the cut. I mean, it's not a terrible card, but 5 is pretty pricey.
Yeah.
And then in title, I even though I think it gives them access to more removal, I feel like they're kind of getting a pretty good amount this set, and so I don't think it's going to quite make the cut there. I think that deck's going to be pretty forward heavy. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it,
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Next up is the first legend. Or no, my bad, second legend, because Aerith was the first. So Fina, she's a 6 CP 9K Brave Exvius job White Mage. If you pay the cost to play Fina onto the field, you may pay an additional 3 wind. When she enters the field, select 1 of 2. If you paid the extra cost, select 2 of 2. Deal 5k to all forward opponent controls, and activate all characters you control.
Card's great. I think this card is a superstar in Wind Water. And I think it will be a big part of that archetype moving forward, just because the fact that, you can play this, or we talked about this when the card was spoiled. Valifor shenanigans, this thing, you've just wiped your opponent's board and put a 9k body on the board.
Yep.
In mono wind, you might not be getting the same value out of it, but you could always play this and then Chelinka and do 7k to the board, which isn't terrible. In Earth Wind, you could play it, off of a Star Sybil, get the 5k, then you can play Chelinka, or you can start shotgunning things down with Dodaluma. So I think the card's really, really good. I'm actually gonna give this one. This is another 5 out of 5 for me. Card's is excellent. And in title, I think if you're playing Brave Exvius, it's probably also going to be a 5 out of 5, because I think it's just going to do a lot when it comes into play. Mostly deactivating the characters, I think, in title. But we'll see. But it does in title, I guess. One more thing before I pass the mic over. It does. If you do the 5,000 to all forwards, that does play very well into Laswell, which I think is really good for title. But that's a whole other can of worms. I don't know. Once Brave Exvius shapes up, I think it'll be a good title deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna give her a 4 on both fronts. Interesting enough, in mono wind, you could, if you have Charlotta out, you could play her off 5 backups and then activate all your characters. So you basically played her for net CP because if you activate forwards, so that seems okay. If you pay her the 9 and you get both effects with Charlotta out, you can kind of get away with spending basically only the 3 CP, which is pretty good. And then, like you said, all the Valifor stuff. So I think that's enough to warrant a 4. I think the only reason I'm not on a 5 is because she costs 6. In title, I'll probably also say a 4. I just don't know how much wind Brave Exvius has in order to pay her kicker cost if they really wanted to. And so at that point, I feel like she's just a 6 CP that could pick one of the other 2, which isn't bad.
Yep.
I think it's still solid, so I'm probably just going to stick with a 4 there. But I think she's really good. Probably going to be one of the more sought-after legendaries in the set.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up is Fina again. So this is a 3 CP 7k Brave Exvius. When she enters the field, choose a wind character you control, activate it. When she's put from the field to the break zone, choose 1 character you control, activate it.
Card's not terrible. I don't know how much play she'll see, because I think decks where the ability she has and the decks where she'll go in, there's just other forwards that do what she does better. And I feel like if you're dedicating a spot to a card named Fina, you're probably playing the legendary one. So for standard, I'm going to give her a 1, as much as it pains me to say, because I think the card is actually good. And then for title, I'm probably just going to give it a 2 or a 3. I'll probably give it a 3 because, again, activating characters could be good in title for Brave Exvius, but I don't know. So, yeah, one standard, 3 for title.
I'll give her a 3 in standard just because I think she's can do some cool stuff. I think she's just in another spot where like she's going to be fighting against cards that are just nuts. And I think that's a problem with the color, not a problem with her card.
That's fair.
So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I like she's essentially 2 CP, and then when she comes out, she can activate any character. So that could be like a Cactuar or a lot of things, which is pretty good. But again, you're fighting with like Y'shtola and Zidane, and it's not a good spot to be in. And then in title, I'll say a 3 as well, just because you could play her alongside the other Fina there. And again, but I don't know if her first ability is gonna be that great because I don't know if there's gonna be that many wind characters other than herself. So, but her exit ability is probably gonna be decent there too. So,
yeah, I agree.
Next up is Variold. I'm not probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's okay. It's a Crystal Chronicles forward. When he's put for the field to the break zone, choose one wind monster of cost 4 or less and play it onto the field. And he's a 5K.
I think he's actually okay. I think he's one of the weaker Brave Exvius cards. But I think if you're in on monsters like Death Gaze, Layax. Again, I'm talking more specifically mono wind here. Or if you're playing like a monster build, like he can get Big Dumpy back.
It's wind only. Wind monster.
Oh, it's only wind. Oh, then never mind. Getting like still being able to get Death Gaze and Layax and stuff like that. I think that's fine. I don't really know if he'll see play. I'll probably give him a 1 just because he can't get Big Dumpy back, and that makes you deserving of a 1 just because on principle at that point.
Yeah. What about title?
Title, probably a 1 as well because I don't really know what Crystal Chronicles. Well, there are some Crystal Chronicles. It's only wind, so never mind. Yeah, 1 in title as well.
Yeah. I'm gonna give him a 1 too. If he was any color, I think he'd be really good actually.
Yeah. I didn't read the wind part like a dum dum.
But like because like all the stuff that he really want to recur is super low cost. Like if you really want to have that, just play Urion J in some kind of other combo deck, and you're gonna profit way more than you would with this dude. The best target he has is like Condor, and good luck with that if you really want to play that.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say he's a 1, and then in title, I'm gonna say he's either a 0 or a 1 because I'm not sure if there's even a 4-cost wind monster in Crystal Chronicles because Basilisk is a 5.
Yeah.
So Basilisk is 9. I don't even know if there is a monster. So if there is a monster,
I don't think there's wind monsters. I know there's like Golem and Lava Spider, but I don't think there's a wind monster.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give him a 0 if there isn't, but if there is and I'm just forgetting it, then he's a 1.
Yeah.
Next up is Matoya. It's EX Burst, 4 CP backup, FF Legends. When it enters the field, choose one monster opponent controls, break it.
I think obviously this card lives and dies by how popular monsters are in the meta. So the fact that it's not cost restricted is good, but again, it's a card that it's going to be dependent on how much play monsters see. So for now, I'm going to give it a 1 in standard. And I think in Legends, or in title, I think just it's Legends, so I think it could be good at some point. And just monster removal in general in title is really hard to come by, so I'm gonna give it a 4 just for that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1 in standard, just because even on color, there's better ways to deal with monsters. I would rather run Alexander, the summon. It's also a burst and kills any monster. Because this can't break itself, so I'm locked into this if I play it unless I have other ways to like recycle it, which I don't like and win because there's so many other valuable backups I want to play, and I'm paying 4. I mean, it's nice that she hits anything, but I would rather just run the Alexander at almost any point, no matter what the meta looks like, unless it's just like monsters everywhere, And then in title, I'll say a 3 just because monster removal is hard to come by, and she deals with any monster, and she's a burst, and they seem to be pretty light on backups, so like the fact that she at least does something seems okay. Next is Yuffie. She's a Category 7 Ninja, 5,000 power, 2 CP forward. If you control 3 or more Category 7 characters other than Yuffie, she gains 2,000 power and haste. And when she attacks, deal 1,000 damage to all forwards opponent control.
Yeah, I'll let you lead off on this one, man.
I think she might be the best Final Fantasy VII card, maybe outside of Aerith in the set. I think Aerith kind of can operate on her own. I think this requires you to be more concentrated on 7. So I say best 7 card. I mean like for the category, as opposed to just like as a card in general. Just because her payoff is pretty good, and she also has another card that works well with her. So like if I can get enough 7 stuff on board, she's a 7k with haste for 2. And then she's gonna deal 1,000, so she's gonna trade with 8Ks. That seems okay to me. With her backup, which we'll talk about later, she's actually not even gonna trade at all, which is pretty good. I think if you are able to somehow build around her and make it go off consistently, I think she's pretty strong. I'm gonna give her a 3. Because it's 3 and herself, so you have to have 4, but it is characters, so you can play backups. But I just think in Wind, it's going to be a little hard to come by, but I'm going to try. So, and then in Title, I actually think she's a 5. I think she's pretty nuts there. It's really easy to get her trigger off, and she's going to be a 2CP, 7k plus that deals 1,000, and she's going to do a lot for that deck, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that assessment across the board. I think in Standard, because she is locked into other Final Fantasy VII characters, I think there's several archetypes you can play, but I think it limits her to the ones that really have the most. Like I think like Earthwind, because you have the Jessie backup, you have all the searchers. You've got Wedge, which I guess is a searcher technically. You've got Marlene. So like those 3 backups alone, and then you could play the other backup that's hers and drop her and shoot. So I think she's a very, very solid 3. I think she's a really good card. And in Title, I agree, 5 out of 5 all across the board.
Next up is Archer. It's a 3CP 7k standard unit. Attacks advance 1, 2 win, dull, put it in the break zone, deal forward 10k.
I like this card. I know I liked it when they initially spoiled it. I like it even more now that Warrior of Light exists. I like the idea of pretty much a 3 CP. Like really, at the end of the day, you're paying 3 CP to choose a forward and deal it 10,000 damage. You can always Gladiator back or something. I think the card's good. Obviously, being a standard unit is solid. So I'm actually going to give it a 3.
Okay.
Because I think it is playable, especially since Warrior of Light exists. And in Title, I think it's going to be good for Tactics Advance when they finally get a Title deck. It depends on how much Wind is going to be in that deck. I mean, they've already got like Ritz and Shara, and Doned, I believe is his name. Yep. So I think she's playable in Title. So I'll give her a 3 in Title as well.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll give her a 3 across the board. I think the only thing she's going to struggle with is finding a slot, like finding a home in decks. I think there's a lot of standard units that are going to be really good, and it's going to come down to if the 10k that she's dealing to like kill herself is worth. But she's on curve and she's a standard unit, so I think she's fine. So yeah, I think 3 across the board.
Yep.
Next is Chaos Walker. It's a reprint, so we're just going to skip that.
At common, it's 5 out of 5.
Now we're getting into the starter cards. So first is Godo. This is the backup I was talking about with Yuffie. It's a 2CP, Cat 7, Wind backup. Card named Yuffie you control gains 1,000 power. And then choose an attacking card named Yuffie you control. It gains first strike until end of turn.
Card's excellent. Obviously, he's good because the Yuffie is good. I think this card is one. If you're playing Wind in Final Fantasy VII, I think it 100% sees play. It's just good. So in Standard, I'm gonna give it the same rating as Yuffie. I'm gonna give it a 3 because I don't think you're playing one without the other. In Title, I'm probably gonna also, since Yuffie's a 5 and this is kind of like a package deal, I think I'm gonna give this card a 5 as well because he just makes that card better.
Yep, I'm gonna agree with that. Pretty much the same ratings I gave Yuffie because I think if you're playing that card, you're also playing this card. Yep. And I think it might have some legs and do some stuff. And I think in Title it definitely does for sure. It's gonna make Yuffie kind of a powerhouse, and then because in Title it affects all your Yuffies, it might force you to play other ones as well. So we'll see.
Yep.
Then we have another Yuffie. This is a 4CP AK. Cat 7 Job Ninja. When she enters the field, you may pay X. If you do, search your deck for one card named Red 13, costs X, and put it onto the field.
I think the card's neat. It's definitely, obviously it's a starter card made for that starter deck. I think it's fine with the backup. I think in Title it's fine. I think in Standard I'll say this. For now, I'm going to give it a 1 for standard. Now, if we get like a real boss hog red 13 at some point, I could see her rating going up. But for standard, I'm going to give her a 1 because I don't think you're playing her over the other Yuffie because I think the other Yuffie is just exponentially better. But I think in title, we talked about Goda and Yuffie. I think this card could be worth a slot in title. There's no reason you can't run like a red 13 to maybe push through for something. So I think in title, I'll give her a 3.
Yep.
It's a really hard maybe, but I think in standard, it's a 1 in standard, 3 in title.
Yep, I'm gonna agree with those numbers as well. I don't think you're playing this because the other Yuffie exists, and if you're not playing that Yuffie and you're playing Wind with 7, you're probably playing the free one. Yep. So I don't think this is gonna be like any standard play unless they print a red 13 that's really, really good in the future because it doesn't exist yet. But in title, I think she's solid. I think she's a 3. You can have targets there that aren't super bad, and maybe you run a couple of them just to make use out of her, and then she also works with Godo, and you can have multiple Yuffies out, so it's fine. So I think, 1 and a 3 is where I'm at, too. And then the last card is going to be Red 13. He's a 3CP 7K, Cat 7, Job Warrior. If you control a card named Yuffie, he gains haste and first strike.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in title, that might be the red 13 that you use. In standard, I think if you're playing Wind, Final Fantasy VII, and Yuri, I could see this guy as like a one of. You can search him, you can do whatever you need to do with him. So I think he's good. I think in standard, I'm going to give him a 2, just because I think if you're running Wind 7 cards, I think he's in there in some capacity, because your chances are you're playing Yuffie and you're playing Noda. In title, I think he's a 3. Because I could easily see him being slotted in. Again, it's just a 1 of a nice utility forward.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 1 in standard just because I don't think he's going to see much play even alongside the other Yuffie, sadly. I think there's just better options. It's nice that he's Cat 7 and works with her, but you could also just play the 3CP Chocobo that's Cat 7. That's probably better. In title, I think he actually is a 3 because if I'm playing the other Yuffie as a 3-star rating, then this one I think is her primary go-to to kind of get the board wide if you need it, even though you're paying 7. And it gives you, you can have the 2CP at haste. This guy's going to have haste first strike. All your Yuffies are going to have first strike. So, in title, I think it's going to be pretty decent. So.
Yep, I agree.
So, yeah, that's all the Wind cards for Opus 8. I think they got more than they needed. I think we had a fair amount of 5-star cards in standard, which
had there, so. I'm a 5-star man.
Yeah. How would you rate me?
Yeah, Warrior Elite is a 5-star man. Can we get the Dennis Reynolds art on that thing?
But I think they got some cards they probably had no business getting, but we'll see.
I think it opens up a lot of variance for Wind and Wind Water with a lot of these cards. So, 100%.
Yeah. So the next element we're gonna look at is gonna be Earth. So make sure you come back for that one. And with that, see you guys later.
Toodles.